What's it going to take to get a good Bigfoot movie these days? Well, here's a few films that have their moments depicting the never-ending quest to prove that something big and hairy is lurking in the wooded areas around the world. Today serves up a duo of found footage films and another documentary from our pals making the On the Trail of Bigfoot docuseries. I also want to let you know that on my website, ML Miller Writes, I just posted a recap of all of the standings of feats and toes from the previous Toes of Terror reviews. So after this video, be sure to zip over there and see the standings so far. I'll put a link to that down before the comments. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Tahoe Joe is streaming on Tubi. It's directed and written by Dillon Brown and Michael Rock. When a soldier goes missing in the Nevada forests near Lake Tahoe, his son reaches out to his wartime buddy and survival expert, Michael Rock, to track him down. Turns out the missing soldier was looking for the elusive Tahoe Joe, a nickname for a bipedal cryptid that has been lurking around Lake Tahoe. Rock teams up with filmmaker Dillon Brown and a paranoid guide named Ben, played by Hunter Nico, to go look for the missing friend and get hard evidence that Tahoe Joe exists by making a documentary using a drone, GoPros, and a handheld camera. I have to give it to Dillon Brown, Michael Rock, and the rest of the team behind Tahoe Joe. They try awful hard to make a capable movie. It seems these two filmmakers who play themselves in the movie know all the basics of making this type of found footage film. There's a whole lot of getting to know you time. There's a lot of evidence gathered and examined before heading into the Sierra Nevada mountains. It isn't really until the 45-minute mark that they really take off and head out on the hike to find the monster, and that's an awful long wait to get there, so get ready for a lot of runtime wasted on banal things, proving that there really isn't a lot to this story. Michael Rock is an okay actor with a presence as a tough guy. His casual conversations with Dillon Brown leading up to the event feel realistic and natural, though not a lot of acting stretches are required for their banter. These are not trained actors, but they do their job and say their lines. The problem is that with the footage found before the hike, they already kind of have proof that the monster exists. It makes you wonder why they decide to go out there in the middle of the woods despite that knowledge. It's supposed to be some kind of Band of Brothers honor thing, but it isn't made clear what they're supposed to do if they do in fact find and confront this monster. One thing Tahoe Joe does well is examine the conspiracy aspect of the government's knowledge of the Bigfoot in a detailed and effective way. Though it's first presented by their paranoid guide, the film shows restraint in divulging any information and amping up the paranoia. This is one of the more underused aspects in the squatchploitation genre, so Tahoe Joe has that going for it. The Bigfoot suit is simply a mass of weeds and fur with some teeth. Looks like a modified gunny suit. Points go for keeping it obscure enough so we don't see much of the faults in the costume, but it simply looks like a walking brown haystack and fails to be scary, or at least isn't framed to highlight that aspect of it. I'm going to give Tahoe Joe 1 foot and 2 toes. Look, this isn't a great movie. It attempts to provide some scares and drama, but the ability just isn't there. I do dig the government angle, so it gets some toes for that. Otherwise, while this seems like a noble low-budget effort by folks who sincerely love the genre, it really doesn't deliver the goods. Our Trip to BERRIBROOK is streaming on Tubi. It's directed and written by Frank Maljevac. A trio of American YouTubers go for a hike through the Australian Alps in search of a Bigfoot-like cryptid called the Beast of BERRIBROOK. They brought their cameras, some supplies, and their wits, and hope to be able to survive the experience. But when they get lost, only the footage they took was found. Well, our trip to BERRIBROOK starts out with promise. The 3 YouTubers have witty senses of humor, they're young and likable, and actually seem like they're acting naturally in front of the camera. Their decisions are not dumb. They just end up getting lost in the woods and have normal reactions to this, except for the fact that they continue to record. One of the things that begins rather entertainingly but gets old fast are the edits made to the footage, including sound bites and rudimentary animation. Though this footage was supposed to be found, somehow they're able to edit it with dance horns and other weird sounds. Think about that for a minute. These guys definitely were not able to add any of these embellishments to the video because they quickly go from being on a planned trip to one filled with despair and fear. Now, either the group edited in the funny sounds later in the day for some stupid reason, or some morbid editor found the footage where it is obvious these three people perished, and on a lark, edited in wonky sounds. Neither of these reasons makes sense, and in found footage, the number one job is to make the video feel as real as possible. The more hands on the footage, the less authentic it feels, and if you don't have authenticity in your found footage film, you don't have a good found footage film. Now, on top of that, Our Trip to BERRIBROOK commits the worst crime one can think of in a found footage monster flick. It never shows the monster. The only thing it shows are drops of foamy drool that plop down on each victim before the camera is dropped at a jaunty angle. This scene is repeated not once, not twice, but 3 times throughout Our Trip to BERRIBROOK. Once would have been effective enough, but if the credits roll and all you have is drool, I don't know about you, but I was disappointed. There are scenes of movement in the background, but for the most part, we get no Sasquatch, no Bigfoot, and no whatever they want to call the elusive and hairy creature wandering around in Australia. I'm sadly going to have to give Our Trip to BERRIBROOK 4 simple toes. And that's being nice. Though the cast was likable at first, the obnoxious editing and failure to go to the trouble of even buying a monster costume killed any good graces this had for me. If you don't have the budget to deliver a Bigfoot in your movie, don't make a Bigfoot movie. On the Trail of Bigfoot, Last Frontier. It's a documentary, and it's new on-demand and digital download from Small Town Monsters. It's directed by Seth Breedlove. Continuing his pursuit to prove that Bigfoot is real, Seth Breedlove travels to Alaska with his film crew to investigate eyewitness sightings, local stories, and audio and video recordings recently captured of an elusive creature called Bigfoot. Will Breedlove and his crew finally find the evidence they've been looking for and prove that Bigfoot exists? Well, in a word, no. No, they won't. But still, out of the 3 Bigfoot films I covered this week, this was the most compelling one. Seth Breedlove comes from the perspective that he wants to believe, but hasn't found hard proof yet. He has covered strange sounds and some compelling evidence that something large was bedding in areas known for Bigfoot activity in previous On the Trail of Bigfoot entries. In this one, Breedlove and the group travel to Alaska, which, if you know your Bigfoot lore, is ripe with activity in the past and even today. Now, I'm like Breedlove. I've never seen a Bigfoot, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I've never seen a platypus in person, but I know that exists. To me, Alaska is the most likely spot to find a Bigfoot, as it's vastly uncharted territory. Breedlove and his crew venture into the thick forests, track down some researchers who have had some encounters, and get some stories from the local community. One of the more compelling aspects of this episode is the fantastic art renderings of Bigfoot moving around the Alaskan environment. These paintings are almost photorealistic, and if one looked at it quickly, one might believe these are actual photos of the elusive cryptid. There are fantastic images played over the stories of encounters, making their experience that much more compelling. I didn't catch the name of the artist, but this is some very cool artwork on display here. I give On the Trail of Bigfoot, Last Frontier 2 feet and 3 toes. Like most Bigfoot docs, there's little I learned from this installment. Bigfoot is still unfound by the end of this one, but the combination of the paintings and the compelling stories make for an entertaining hour, if you're as into Bigfoot lore as I am. Recommended for those interested in the cryptid, but Last Frontier may disappoint anyone looking for anything new. Sorry folks, I wish I had some better Bigfoot horror for you this week. It's just not the best this time around, but hopefully there are some better toes of terror yet to be discovered next time.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. You're doomed. Live the life that you are meant to be. Live inside